about 25 years now. I was with Home Hardware for a while, and then when I was 23, I bought my first truck and went out on my own and started trucking. I did that for about 2.5 years. Within 2.5 years, I had a couple extra trucks. A few years later, had some more opened up operating authorities. We started moving shipments between all across Canada and most of the U.S. We were transporting between BC and Quebec, and then all U.S. points. In 2008, 2007, 2008, I built it up. I had 15 trucks, or 4 owner-operators, and a small freight brokerage division. 2008 was the year. I know the security desk will start up in 2008. We did basic business consulting in this area. I did that for about a year, and then I got back into the transportation industry when I was offered a position with a company called a logistics company working out of Toronto, bringing produce out of South America. For the most part, that's what we were doing, bringing produce and stuff out of South America. We were going through New Jersey and up to Toronto, and then it would be distributed across Canada. So, anybody here familiar with what a logistics coordinator does? So you kind of got that in your head. Okay. So I guess the basis of it. A lot of what we work with is there's all different kinds of modes of transportation. There's couriers, trucks, trailers. There's different kinds of trucks. There's drive-in, all kinds of different kinds of vehicles. There's ocean containers. There's the whole ocean freight industry, and then the intermodal train, all that stuff. We work with all of those things all at the same time. And what we do is we provide a service where we make it seamless to fill a supply chain. So we can take, for instance, products from China and use all of those different modes of transportation to get it delivered to your location in Manitoba or wherever we are. Logistics coordinators work with all kinds of different things. We specialize in product quantities and products like that that we're moving around the country. So we're using all different modes of transportation and we combine them all to make a seamless delivery to the customer. I think a lot of people don't understand what exactly goes on in order to get products moved around the country. For instance, the stuff that we were moving out of South America, it was produce. So we're talking onions, celery, lettuce, stuff like that coming, could be out of Guatemala or it could have been something like that. Now that stuff has to be picked up on the field. It has to get into a truck, into a container, then it has to go to the ship line. Then the ship line has to take it off that container off the truck, put it onto a ship. Then the ship has to move to, we were using the port one of the ports in New Jersey. From there, that container has to go onto another truck. It has to go to a warehouse. Then it has to be transferred into another piece of, into another piece of equipment. It's brought up to Canada, and then it's gone. It goes into a distribution center, and then it's delivered across Canada. So all of that stuff in between, and making all of that stuff work together, and working with your different timelines and everything, that's what a logistics coordinator would work with. Okay. Logistics coordination has been around for a long time. Since the beginning of time, we never called it a logistics coordinator. For the most part, nobody really had a name for it or anything like that. But basically, from moving goods from one point to another, putting that supply chain in place and making things move would be the job of a logistics coordinator. Okay. There was a time, and this would have been, say, early 1800s. This is how something would have been moved around. We weren't doing much with globalization or anything like that. There were some products that were moving across the world, but this would kind of be the history of how things were done. You know, it could be horse and carriage, canoes. The fur trade had to move things around, so they needed to get furs, say, from the center of Canada and get them to into Europe, where they were being distributed. One of the main reasons why Canada was invented. So things would have been moved on a canoe, possibly a ship for longer voyages. Even things where, you know, you'd have fruits and vegetables that were going into different areas. They would all have different ways of moving them around. So with the way globalization has been working, now the whole industry is getting far bigger. Our reach is far bigger than it ever used to be. There never used to be a way to get fresh fruits and vegetables from New Zealand to Canada in time that it wouldn't be rotten by the time you got to eat it. There were containers. Now we have all of this kind of stuff. This is just one specific part of transportation logistics. Some of the new stuff that's coming out with logistics, like transportation logistics, the new cutting edge technology is stuff like these, the drones that they're talking about using. Has anybody ever seen these before? Do you know anything about them? Okay. Some companies are working with drones right now, as well as throughout areas of Africa and stuff like that. They're using these drones where these aren't very big. They're only going to be about, say, that big. They've got helicopter. They're like a helicopter. They're guided by GPS. They can go about 10 kilometers in 2 or 3 minutes, so they can go pretty fast. And they're able to distribute things in through all parts of Africa and stuff where they weren't able to get things before. So where it would have taken 2 or 3 weeks to move, now they can get it in 10 or 15 minutes. So it takes logistics coordinators to be able to put this kind of stuff together to be able to make this possible. For instance, any one of these things, they can only fly 10 or 15 kilometers at a time. And then they have to be, so you have to put together a complete network to make this kind of stuff work. This is kind of an example of what their network, what this particular network will look like. So this would be your base point, and it would deliver all over the place. So logistics coordinators would be responsible for putting that kind of a system together. That's on a higher level than what I'm doing right now, but this is where some of this stuff can go. So there's just another picture of the drone. Now this drone here is one that Amazon apparently is working with right now, and they're looking at being able to deliver orders the same day with these drones, and it will deliver right to your house. So you can order it online and have it delivered an hour or 2 hours later, right to your door. They're working on this technology, and this would take a lot of logistics coordination to be able to figure out how to make this all work. These things have to fly around buildings, and they have to make sure not to hit things, and they can only go so far. And then there's transfer points and all kinds of stuff like that. Working with all of that, you know, is part of the future of where some logistics can go. Opportunity in logistics. There's such a wide variety of things that you can do as a logistics coordinator. There are things, hydroelectric, delivering into the northern communities, all kinds of stuff like that. There's hydro, so hydro needs to be distributed, so does natural gas. All kinds of different things need to be moved all over the world. Even something as similar as you know, cellular phones, that all needs to get to the door of where it's being delivered. And so the logistics coordinators would take care of putting all of that together. This just kind of gives you an idea you know, some of the terrain where you could be ending up into northern Manitoba. Just kind of gives you an idea of what kind of opportunities there are in logistics. Currently, trade, about 90% of trade, world trade right now depends on shipping. So with 90% of trade depending on shipping, you need to be able to have people to put these things together to make it work. In order to get all of this together, that's what a logistics coordinator would do. Give you an example. World trade between 2011 between Canada and the US was $689 billion. The amount of shipments that takes to make that stuff move across the border is quite staggering, considering that one logistics coordinator can possibly handle up to 80, 20 shipments a day. Each person, it takes a lot of people to be able to do all of this stuff, to put it together, to be able to make these chain supplies work. Roles and responsibilities. My job in the morning when I get up, first thing would be I'd be checking emails, checking on the shipments that I've got going on. I'm in the third-party logistics portion of it, so we do logistics work for other companies, kind of on a sometimes a percentage basis or more, sometimes as a consulting basis. We help people move their products, help companies move their products around. I deal primarily with smaller companies and try and offer them the same kind of services that big companies would have, where they have their own logistics department that takes care of all of this kind of stuff. So this would be an idea of what my screen looks like. The different shipments that I've got going on. A lot of stuff happens when I'm sleeping because there's all kinds of different time zones. So we could be talking about anything happening between, well, if you think about between Shanghai and Winnipeg, I do a fair bit of stuff out of Shanghai to Winnipeg. There's a 13-hour time difference. So if it's midnight there, it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Or, sorry, yeah, so it's that kind of a time difference. So when they're sending me emails, I'm sleeping. So when I get up in the morning, I'll see that they've sent me these emails and then we've talked. Sometimes in order to have a live conversation with somebody, I'll have to do that at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. So I get up in the middle of the night and that way I can have a live conversation. We can deal with things. You guys have all got an iPod, right? Just to give you an idea of how a shipment would move and some sort of the logistics that people would set up. In order to get your iPod delivered to you, those come out of, in parts, they come out of China or some other place in Asia. From Asia, they go to Seattle. From Seattle, they go by train. They go to Iowa. From Iowa, they get onto a truck. And then they're distributed out of their distribution center in Iowa. So putting all of those things together is kind of what a logistics coordinator would do. These would be just some of the modes of transportation that we work with what I do. As for some of the roles and responsibilities, it's not all easy and nothing goes very smoothly. Nothing, always does. You're depending on a lot of different people at a lot of different times. You're expecting a whole bunch of people to do their jobs, and you need the weather and everything to all work together in order for things to go well. Quite often things don't go well, and you need to be able to be the kind of person that can find a solution rather than let it get you down. Because things, a lot of times in this industry, will go bad, and it's your job to be able to try and find a solution. Last week I had a shipment that I had moved. It was coming out of Winnipeg and it was going to Ottawa. From Ottawa it was going to be getting on a plane. It was going to be going to meet a team in Nunavut. We had this shipment picked up just fine. We got it picked up. It went to the depot. One of the guys on the dock accidentally misshipped it and the thing went up to Thompson, Manitoba. So from Thompson, Manitoba,
when our shipment is supposed to be in Ottawa, we had to find a solution to get it back to Ottawa as soon as possible, because there's a team of guys that are staying in a hotel waiting for this stuff to be delivered. So we had to find a solution. Now, there were a few things that went wrong on the way through this solution, but we ended up getting it delivered. But the solution we ended up having to come up with, we had to get it from Thompson to Winnipeg. From Winnipeg, we had to put it on an expedited truck. Now we had to get it to Ottawa. When it got to Ottawa, the truck that was supposed to be delivering it got a flat tire, so it was late, and then it was getting repaired, and it missed 2 more flights after that. And all of that is kind of stuff that we would have had to deal with. That's something that me and my team work with, to fix that. For your education in logistics, some of the kind of things that you might be looking at would be to start off with like a certificate in logistics, or a CITT. You can take courses in, you'll take math, algebra, calculus. All of those are very useful things that you need. Chain supply management, all kinds of things like that. If you want to talk to a counselor or something like that, they can tell you what courses would be of more benefit to you. A lot of times, though, those courses that you'd go and take would be just giving you the basis to be able to build a career off of. Where you can really build a career would be off of your attitude and how willing you are to work, what you're looking to do, whether or not you can think outside the box, whether or not you can make new plans and solve new puzzles, and make all of this cost effective. Okay, so if you're interested in the job in third-party logistics, something like what I would do, there's certain things that we're looking for in an interview. It's not always going to be about your education, your marks, or any of that stuff. It's not always going to be like that. A lot of what we're going to be looking for is going to be your attitude. Whether or not you're going to be the person that's going to ask questions instead of tell me the answers. Polished answers don't really do me much good. If you want to ask questions and you're willing to learn and you're willing to think about things, that's where you're going to be of